Thanks, Paul. We're Team 1, the Rubenstein Library's card catalog file. I'm Heidi, and I'm joined by my teammate Biniam, and we'll tell you a bit about what we've been working on this summer. So for a brief overview of our project, we've been working with the digitized cards from the David M. Rubenstein Rare Book and Manuscript Library's physical card catalogs. Our team explored these over 50,000 cards to help further the library's initiative of finding and describing historically marginalized voices in their collections. Here we can see a picture of what the card catalog used to look like. For a brief summary of our data wrangling methodology, our first task was to create a search tool for the librarians to search through the text of the cards. So we uploaded the drawers of cards to the Internet Archive. So this allows users to do keyword and metadata search and also flip through the cards like a flipbook. Then we started making our data set. So our first step was running OCR on the JPEG files. And after we had the text from that, we went about collecting the author names for our first piece of metadata. This was really important for sorting the cards by collection. And after we sorted by collection, we extracted some other important metadata fields like year and location. And for this, we were mostly limited by the OCR quality, but we were able to pull out a lot of really meaningful data from just the text. So after we created the data set, we went and did some different types of analysis, such as geospatial, demographical, and historical on this data set. And as you can see, we made this into a web app. The link is in the chat. And we used Streamlit and put all of our data on this web app for easy viewing of the results. And we also uploaded our data and code to the Duke Research Data Repository for future researchers. So I'll give a brief overview of some of the demographics we found in the catalog. Most of the collections are from North Carolina, Virginia, and the surrounding states. Many of them are from the United States, but there are also some from other countries. And as you can see by this map, most of the cards are clustered around Durham County. For some of the gender demographics of the catalog, about 20% of the collections were authored by organizations, and of the other 80% that were authored by a person, 90% of those were created by men. So these results aren't very surprising, but it's interesting to see them displayed. All right, I'll pass it off to Biniam to talk about some common topics.
Yeah, so in the early phase of our analysis, we did topic modeling and found out 5 main topics. And these topics were the church and Duke, domestic politics, the civil war, foreign affairs, and business. So these topics are worth to explore if anyone wants to use our dataset. So then in an attempt to study Duke's history through these cards, we searched for history of Duke's early presidents, early building names, early faculty members, and these cards. So for Duke's early presidents, for example, we did quantitative and qualitative analysis. For example, one of the presidents mentioned was John Franklin Crowell, and we found letters from him about the early years of the history department of Trinity College, the quarrel they used to have between him and the faculty, and also letters from his mother. Another president was John Kilgo. We found entries which mention his support for Trinity College, the Methodist Church, and also court cases involving him due to his remarks about Thomas Jefferson. While searching for early Duke faculty members, we searched for person whom buildings at Duke are named after, like Bassett and Baldwin. We also found the Giles sister, which were the first women to receive degree from Trinity College. And these cards have a detailed description of how they got in and how they received. So this just small analysis just shows how these cards are very valuable, and they link to rich resources for studying Duke's early history. And one of our goals was to make these specific clusters and collections accessible, and we did that through our web app. So the limitations during our project was mainly due to OCR. So we have manually gone through our dataset to correct OCR errors, especially in the author name column. However, there are still some incomplete location or data cells, as well as some completely blank rows that the OCR was not able to pick up. So that was our limitation, and our first recommendation, even as our team continued this research, would be to manually correct some of this data. Our final deliverables, we had 3 deliverables. The first one, as Heidi mentioned, was the Internet Archive search tool. So we have uploaded all the cards there, and it enables easy searching and viewing. So this we hope would be very helpful for the librarians. The second one is structured dataset. So from the raw PDF files we had initially, we created and delivered the structured dataset with columns like author name, date, location, and link of each card to Internet Archive. So this data set is uploaded to Duke Research Repository, and it's available for exploration. Our final deliverable, third deliverable is an interactive app. It is built using Streamlit. So this includes all of our analysis and visualizations. It also provides tool to filter and explore the dataset, as well as explore some of the collections we mentioned earlier. So future directions, well, we've seen how valuable these cards are. Topics to look into with regards to Duke University could be its historical ties to the Methodist Church, history of minority students beyond the university. We have events such as the Civil War, slavery activism in North Carolina, Wilmington race riot, and many. So one other important analysis would be also to identify outdated language in the cards, and that would be our recommendation for future analysis. And we hope our structured dataset enables more of such analysis. And with that, we end our presentation. Thank you for listening. We will accept questions now before showing our web app.
Thank you. That was really very interesting, and some really diligent work you've done all summer. Very well presented. So as I said in the chat, folks can put questions in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. Do as you like. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I had just 2 questions. One, I was really impressed by the site on Streamlit, and I was wondering if that was something that was new to either of you, and just kind of, if so, was it pretty easy to learn about? The other more substantive question is, I was given that you're working with like historical texts, just curious what kinds of things did you learn using some of those like NLP techniques, you know, and how well do they translate through the ages, as it were, since, you know, language definitely changes and the way that we think about language has changed. So I'm just curious if there were any techniques that you ran into problems with because of how language has evolved.
Yeah, so starting off with the first question, I had never used Streamlit before, and it was pretty easy to pick up. So compared to like using maybe like CSS and HTML to make a website, it was very more built-in functionality. So it was much more like copying and pasting the code we had already written and adding a little bit of formatting, which was really nice because we spent so much of our time making the data set that we didn't really have a lot of time to present like our findings in a comprehensive way. So Streamlit really like allowed us to very quickly create the site, and we finished that in about like 1 to 2 weeks. So it really made it easy. As for your second question, yeah, so there were a lot of instances of outdated language, and as Viniam was saying, that's something we'd like future teams to look into. Just if you read through some of the cards, you can see they sort of talked about different groups in different ways. But just in the formatting of how the cards were, now with the internet, we tend to have like more structured metadata fields for library catalogs. Whereas for some of these cards, the formatting was so different that it made it very difficult for us to pull out information. So like they all started with the name, but the names weren't all in the same format. So some of them might have said like Smith, comma, John, but some of them might have said like Brown, comma, B period, A period. So that was something that made it really difficult because sometimes the other metadata fields were in different orders. So it might have said like name and then title, and then it might have said the date, or it might have said a range of dates, and then might go into location, and some of them didn't have all the same fields. So we had to get really creative with using different strategies to pull out that language.
And I just have a real quick follow-up question. With the way that the metadata was changed, was that just kind of a fluke of record keeping, or did like conventions and how information is stored change, like new techniques in archiving or things like that?
I'm not exactly sure how, like when it changed or like why they decided to change it, but some of the cards were in different fonts, which I think signified like at some point they changed like how they maybe typed them out. And Megan might be able to talk about like the conventions more, but yeah, it seems like it could have varied by time, or it could have also varied by like who was making the card, because some of like the like date ascension, so the date the library got to catalog the item, was in a different format. So some of them just said like 1/12/89, and we're like, well, is that 1889? Is that 1989? Like, we're not really sure. So it's sort of hard to know like exactly how it changed.
I think you're right, Heidi, in terms of yeah, different stuff over the period of, you know, the 100 years or so that the card file was created had different techniques. And so as structured as they intended it to be, it still has got the user's individual touch on the cards that they were typing. And I think that you're seeing some of that in trying to structure the data set later on. So yeah, definitely different practices that evolved over time. Some of the most recent cards are overlapping with like the development of computer cataloging. And so there was this period of time when there was a card file created, but also a record created for the for the Duke Library's online catalog. And so it was almost redundant information. And so therefore there was less effort, in my view, on the card file, because like it was like a backup option for until they just discontinued creating cards. So you are seeing that in the range of cards that are in the file for sure.
Any other questions? I have a few, but I want to defer to the visitors. So I guess I'll ask one. So are you all intending to show the app as well? Should I make sure to leave time for that, or?
Yeah, we can show the app whenever there's a break in the questions.
Yeah, why don't you jump in there now then?
Okay, so first we can show the Internet Archive site. So this is where we uploaded the drawers of cards. So you can click on the drawers and flip through the different cards. So it sort of like simulates the physical card catalog. Also, you're able to search through the catalog, so either the metadata or the text contents, and you can find the instances of a word in the catalog. Yeah, and we can give a brief demo of our web app now. So we've created several tabs. So first, just an overview of what the project is about. And then we compiled most of our data analysis onto this page. And we have our spatial, our our demographical, and you can also see the data set. Okay, so first we have like some of our topic models, word clouds, go into some of the demographics. And for the spatial maps, you can hover over and see the states that there are. We also have some information about the international countries in the catalog. And for the Duke History tab, we have both like the quantitative and some qualitative analysis of the instances where history is found in the catalog. And we also really encourage users to go to the cards in the Internet Archive and read about any specific people they might be interested in. And then we have a couple more interactive apps or tabs. So for this tab, you can explore and filter the data set. So you're able to select which columns you want and then view them. You can also choose a time range or filter by what the identity of the author is, or even filter by a specific author or continent or drawer number. And then we have another tool that is pretty cool. So you can choose a date range. So maybe we want to look at the cards that were made around the time of the Civil War. So we can pick a date range in the sliders and generate a word cloud. So as you can see, here's one for the 1860s. And while we still have a lot of the similar words as we have in the main word cloud, it can be interesting to see what the cards were talking about in certain periods of time. And then for another, for our last tab, we have a similar Explore tool just for the notable collections. So you can search presidents, early names, buildings, or a couple historical events and see the instances of those cards with the full text. And also like we have the links to the Internet Archive page.
That's amazing stuff. Can you talk a little bit about your sort of own personal technical journey, about how much of the stuff you knew how to do already and how much you learned along the way and how you did it?
Biniam, do you want to go first?
Yeah, is that in terms of the web app or?
Oh yeah, I say everything.
Yeah, so the cleaning process took us a while and we had to do a lot of research. We had to use a couple of tools. One of the tools we used was Operifine, and we had to use NLP techniques like in chunking and tagging for us to clean it in a better way. So we learned new tools and as well as new NLP techniques. And in terms of making the web app, it was not that difficult, but we had to study the documentations. But Streamlit is very natural. It's built on Python and the documentation is well written. So yeah, it was not too hard to learn Streamlit, but we made a lot of knowledge out of this project. We used different tools.
Cool.
But we recommend Streamlit as an app for quick exploration and data visualization.
Yeah, it's funny to see how fast the field is moving. I'll admit this is the first time I'm hearing of Streamlit. It looks very, very cool. So that's neat.
It's
Other
neat.
good. Other folks have questions?
I'll ask another question. I noticed in the word clouds that there would be like single letters or one or two letters, not complete words. And is that an artifact of the OCR or the stemming? Just curious where that came from.
Yeah, we found that that was a product of the OCR. So there were some frequent errors in the OCR. So like commas, instead of a comma, it might be an E in the text that was generated. Or if there were like blurry bits to the picture, to the cards, or maybe like crossed out letters, it had a really difficult time of picking those up. So sometimes like individual letters might be like treated as a word. And so yeah, we tried to remove some of the like common errors in the word clouds, but there were just a lot of recurring errors with the OCR since a lot of the cards' metadata was so similar.
Did you get any sense with optical character recognition how difficult your problem was relative to sort of other stuff you saw out there in the literature? Like, is this hard stuff to do OCR on, or is this where does it fit?
I would say ours is a bit harder than normal just because of how different the text was from each other. Even like some of the cards, the text was too faint to be picked up, and some of them it's like by the nature of how they were made, like there were crossed out parts. Whereas I think OCR does its best on very like clean lines of typed text. But when we get into stuff like what we see, we have difficulties.
That makes sense. So just quick time check for folks who want to hop to another breakout room. We're starting the next sessions at 10:30. We're going to have another team coming in here in about 3 minutes. But if you were looking to go to breakout room 2 or any of the other plus programs, you might want to take a little bit of time to transition. Anyone have a last question? Agreed. Great job.